Okay, so in this video, I'm going to talk about all three, or all, how many? Four. Four of these steps. Count them, four of these production steps, because they are all, some of them happen at the same time, and um, even though it's a sequence, it's just a series of things that we do once we get to this point that we're actually producing. All right, so let's talk about that. Um, so the production steps are: step one, assign work to artists and put their names on the production chart. And I did talk about that up here for making the production chart, right? Adding their names in there. So that I kind of already talked about. So, but basically, that's the first step: is we get it organized now. Let's put a schedule to everything, and we can even do things like this, where we have, oops. This is kind of another way to look at it, is the timeline of everything that has to be done. Um, and it's kind of like more of a roadmap of like what are the times that all things need to happen by. I don't necessarily think we're going to do that for this, but that's one way. And anyway, what I wanted to show you was this, which is no, that's not the one. That's a cool one though. It tells what all the artists do in the studio. The one I was looking for was, here we go. So we can also do this. We can take this, and I will actually copy this and put that on that other board. I'll copy these two things because we need both of these. This is one way to schedule what these guys are doing. And let's see, where are we? I'm going to go back to here. There we go. And let's paste that in here. Okay, so along with, adding their names over here, we can also make this master schedule, basically, which says, what is this guy doing now? What's he going to be doing after that? What is his next few steps that he's going to be working on, right? And here we have also the medical stuff, because we have to balance everything we're doing, right, with other projects that are priority. Okay, so that's basically getting a schedule worked out. Who's going to do what when. That's pretty important, right? And then step two is manage the sequence of steps for each asset. So what I mean by that is make sure the artists have what they need. Make sure the sequence of production keeps people busy, right? And so that kind of works back to here when you realize I have to deal with this every day, because I realize somebody's finishing something and I haven't given them the next thing to do, and that's never good. So, but where this comes in is you can see these steps following through, and you can see who the artists are who are working on it. And you can also, let's say, somebody comes up to you and says, well, what do I do next? Well, you can look at this chart to see where he would fit in. And maybe we already have a plan, and he forgot, and he doesn't know, he's not paying attention. So we go back to this chart and look to see what he's going to do next. So that's one way to do that, is to make sure that they're keeping busy. Another way that works is what I described in the last video, which was this parallel production. So keeping the animator busy while these guys are producing, that's important. We don't wait till we're all the way done and start animating, right? So, while we're doing textures and other things, we already have a rig. This guy's rigging while these guys are doing retopo and UV. And Nut is making these lower polygon versions of everything, right? So that's kind of how that works, to keep people busy. And anything else that might, stop people from working, we need to find out what should they do. And that's why sometimes, if there's nothing else, I will find something for them to study and do a tutorial on something, some skill they need to brush up on or something they need to work on. Let's say they're going to start working on something over here, and they could use some extra tutorials to help with that process. Well, if they're waiting for something to happen first, they can be doing a tutorial on that. So this just takes, paying attention every day and thinking about everything that's happening, right? And making choices about what to assign, what kind of work to assign, or what kind of training to get them working on, right? Okay, so then step 3, update the production chart with progress. And so that's important too, because even though things work really like slow motion with a film, with an animation, it's still good to keep this updated so that when you can quickly look and see where everything is, see the status of things. That maybe you realize, well, the retopo's done on this, and well, he hasn't done the low polygon yet. Well, why is that? Okay, so let's figure that out, because that needs to get done, because this is moving forward. All right, so it's good to follow, to update. Right, that's important. And then step 4 is help solve problems to keep assets moving through the pipeline. So what I mean by that is there are a lot of things that can occur. And I think I mentioned this in the first video. But if we look closer at this pipeline, you realize that each one of these steps is broken down into a skill. It's not only a step on the process; it's a specific skill. In other words, a guy has to work a long time just to get really good at UV. He has to work a long time to get good at textures, not just the talent, but the technical side. And retopo, that's a whole skill by itself. So we want to keep things moving on the pipeline, but also we don't want someone to be so fast that they mess this up and it screws this up, or it gets all the way here and it's got to go all the way back to here, right? So that's one thing, is to make sure that there are checkpoints along the way. Right, because that could stop an asset from moving on the pipeline. If a guy does this one wrong, this guy can't do his work, right? It has to go back to here, right? So that's one thing. Just making sure that the right guy is doing it, and that if he's doing it right. So then there can be software bugs. An artist could say, well, I can't get this figured out. Sometimes people just need a little help or a little push in the right direction to say, look, maybe go look online to try to find that, or, well, if that's a bug, let's see if we can find another way to do that. And in these kind of cases, a lot of times you wind up having to ask me. I know a lot of answers. I don't know everything, but I understand the entire pipeline, and I know the places where things can go wrong, and I'm familiar with a lot of the software. And that by itself is a skill that's really difficult to get and takes a long time, and that's a technical director skill. And that's to know the ins and outs of the pipeline and know where things can break. And when they break, how do you go in there and fix them? It's not always possible, because there might be a bug, or there might be a user error, or it might be something that people do all the time and they forget about, and then, oh yeah, if I just do that, I forgot, it's not supposed to do that because it'll make this other thing break or whatever. So it's just a matter of staying on top of it, and mostly being communicating with everyone. So step 4, resolve problems to keep assets moving through the pipeline. To do that, you got to communicate, you got to check, you got to look at what people are doing and making sure that they're not stuck somewhere. They will have a tendency to try to sort it out themselves first. That's natural. But if it looks like they're getting stuck on something too long, it's time to kind of step in and see if they need some help, get pointed in the right direction. Okay? So that's pretty much that. And at the end of the day, like I said, there's pizza when we get here. Excuse me. Finish the film. All these things come together. Excuse me. Or shabu, whatever is the popular meal of the day. And my voice is going to go out, and I'm done with this video. I'm going to come back with a video to talk about how to use the real-time board.